Cool. How's it, Hillside, to all the life groups out there, wherever this is going? Yeah, it was a privilege to preach this morning. For those of you that missed it, I preached on salvation, creation, and world domination. Okay, I get very pumped when I get the pulpit. So, yeah, so I want to talk briefly about just a few stories from the Bible in the Old Testament and how Jesus perfected all of that when he came and died on the cross and rose again. So we see creation, it comes in and it's this beautiful plan, and sin enters the world, and there's a whole story in that. And the curtain was closed to God's presence. And throughout the Old Testament, to enter God's presence, there was this curtain preventing us, and only the Levites, the Levitical priesthood, could enter that presence. And we kind of move on, and then there's the flood that comes. An interesting thing that we find about the flood is that God said the morality really upset him when he saw husbands leaving their wives, and it was disunity. And we kind of see this common thread. God is not a God of disunity. And we go on, and a story that I want us to focus on is at the Tower of Babel, when we are pursuing our own gain and not the will of God and moving outside of God's will. There was this divide, and 70 nations were split. And it says in Deuteronomy that 70 different languages were spoken. And in that, something quite interesting happens, is that God sends from heaven these spiritual beings to rule over these 70 nations. Okay, and this is actually not part of a garden plan. A garden plan is one God walking with the whole of humanity. And what happens when Jesus comes, and it says these spiritual beings had power and authority over these nations. But then what happens, which I love, is Jesus comes, he says, all power power and authority on heaven and on earth I give to you, to go out and make disciples of all nations, casting out demons, healing the sick, and taking the gospel to all nations, to bring them all back into unity once more. Which I think is so powerful, because what the sin of the world and the sin of our own selfishness and our pride and our arrogance from the Tower of Babel that split and divided the unity that God set up in the garden was now been given to us to go reclaim through that power and authority in heaven and on earth that Jesus gave to us, his people. Which is so powerful, and we have so much power in that. And Jesus did many things, and he goes through, and I'll go through all the different things he did. But I think for this week, if we can just highlight that what actually is that power and authority given to us, and when people used to gather around temples to get into the presence of God to create unity between man and God, they had to gather around an ark of the covenant or a synagogue or a temple. But now it says from the upper room the Holy Spirit filled all of his people, and now we became the temple of the presence of God. And now we can take that out, and for the first time unity actually looks like a going of people, but to actually bring them back into unity, which is so powerful, because once the presence of God was in one space, now we can send it out into all spaces. So guys, I want you to look into that and see, what power have we been given? What authority have we been given? And how can we bring unity once more? And how can we go back to the perfect plan of creation? What does that look like for us? What does that look like for your life group? And I'll leave you with that. Thanks guys, it's a blessing to share with you guys, and I hope you guys are doing well.
Holy Spirit, Holy Spirit, Holy Spirit, overflow. Holy Spirit, overflow. Holy Spirit.